Okay, let's get into this. So many people dream of owning land, right? Maybe you bought some, inherited it,
Hmm.
but then reality hits. You live miles away, or your schedule is just impossible.
Yeah, finding the time, being physically present, it's a real hurdle.
So the big question is, how do you make that land actually work for you? Make it productive, maybe even turn a profit when you're an absentee farmer.
It's a common situation, definitely. Wanting the land, but struggling with the logistics of distance and time.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. We're looking at excerpts from this source, how to utilize your farmland as an absentee farmer.
Right.
Our plan is to unpack the key strategies here. How can you, the listener, effectively manage farmland even if you can't be there all the time?
And it's not about being hands-off in a neglectful way. It's more about smart planning, setting up systems.
And trust, right. Building those relationships.
Precisely. It's a shift in thinking. You're not the day-to-day worker. You're more like the conductor.
The conductor, I like that. Okay, so the source starts somewhere, maybe a bit surprising. It says, don't just jump into picking a crop.
Yeah, that's often the very first impulse, isn't it? Got land, what do I grow?
Totally.
But this guide says, hold on. You need to start bigger picture. Think long-term vision first, like 3 to 5 years out.
Okay, why is that vision piece so critical, especially if you're managing remotely?
Well, because you won't be there to constantly adjust things on the fly. That initial vision, it's your compass.
Ah, okay.
It shapes every single decision afterwards. The source really pushes you to ask, what do you want this land to achieve for you?
Right. Is it about like generating income, growing food for your family, maybe livestock?
Or a mix. And what's the priority? Is it purely profit?
Hmm.
Or maybe sustainability is huge for you? Or creating local jobs?
Community impact. Yeah.
Exactly. And depending on your answer, your path looks totally different. Someone aiming for, say, organic vegetables for a local market needs a different setup than someone growing a commodity crop for export.
Makes sense. That vision prevents you from making mismatched choices down the line, especially when you're not there to course correct easily.
It's that fixed point, your North Star for remote management.
Okay, vision locked. Then we get practical. What actually goes in the ground and how, especially considering you won't be there daily.
Right. Now, the source talks about smart choices for that specific situation being absent. Think low-maintenance crops or things that work well under contract farming.
Okay, give us some examples from the source. What kind of crops fit that bill?
It points to things known for being pretty tough and not needing constant fiddly attention. Cassava is a big one.
Why cassava?
It's hardy, doesn't need tons of inputs usually, and crucially, the harvest window is really flexible. You don't have to be there that exact week.
Okay, less time pressure. What else?
Plantain or banana are mentioned. They need care, sure, but not that daily micromanagement some crops demand. Then there are longer-term plays.
Like tree crops.
Exactly. Oil palm, coconut. They take years to establish, maybe 3 years or so. But after that, the management is pretty minimal for a long time.
Right. Less intensive after setup.
And for niche, potentially high-margin things on smaller plots, it mentions herbs or moringa. Sometimes those are ideal if you have a dedicated caretaker.
Interesting. And it mentions some bonus crops, too.
Yeah, things like maize or legumes. These often work well if you have a really reliable person on the ground, or if you partner with, say, a local farmer co-op. They might need a bit more focus, but they're common in sharecropping deals.
Which brings us neatly to the how. How does the work actually get done if you're not the one doing it? The source talks about different models.
It lays out 3 main approaches.
Yeah.
The simplest, most hands-off is just a short-term lease.
So renting the land out.
Yep. Seasonally, yearly,
Yeah.
you get rent income, zero involvement in the farming itself. Passive.
Okay. What's the next step up in involvement?
That would be sharecropping. The source mentions names like Abunu or Abusa, depending on the region. The basic idea is you provide the land, maybe some initial inputs like seeds or fertilizer.
Mhm.
A local farmer does all the work, planting, weeding, harvesting.
Okay. You split the profits.
Or the harvest itself, yeah, based on whatever percentage you agree on beforehand. Shared risk, shared reward.
Got it. And the third model sounds like it gives the owner more control.
It does offer more direct oversight, conceptually.
Okay.
It's called a managed farming agreement.
Okay.
Here, you're essentially hiring a professional, an agribusiness manager, a farm consultant, someone who acts as your manager on the ground.
So they handle the day-to-day.
They hire labor, supervise operations, make decisions based on your vision and goals, and crucially, they report back to you regularly.
That reporting seems vital for staying in the loop remotely.
Absolutely.
And the source really hammers home one point about all these models, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Non-negotiable,
Right.
written, legal agreements.
Oh,
Always. Especially as an absentee owner. You need everything spelled out. Who pays for what inputs? When is harvest? How are profits split exactly? What are the boundaries of land use?
avoids disputes later.
Big time. When you're miles away, ambiguity is your enemy. A clear contract protects everyone and sets expectations from the start.
Makes perfect sense. Your legal safety net. But contracts aside, there's still the trust issue. How do you know what's really going on?
And that's the absolute core of it, according to the source. Building that local support system, people you can genuinely trust, they become your eyes and ears.
Indispensable, really.
Completely.
So how does the source suggest building that trust, that support network from afar?
It talks about actively finding and engaging someone local. Could be a respected farmer, maybe a community leader, or even identifying a motivated young person you can train.
Train and empower, I think that was the phrase.
Yes, exactly. Empower them, make them your go-to person. Another way is tapping into existing groups, farmer cooperatives, agricultural clusters. They can offer a kind of community oversight.
Okay, so find your person or group. Then communication is king.
Absolutely vital. The source insists on consistency, not just random calls, but a predictable rhythm. Weekly check-ins, phone, video, whatever works, regular reports, maybe with photos,
That consistency builds accountability.
and keeps you connected. It's about treating them like real partners, not just employees.
Ah, yes, that point about partnership.
It's powerful. If your local team feels valued, feels like they have a stake in the success, they're naturally going to look after the land and the project better. It builds loyalty and, well, genuine care.
That makes a huge difference compared to just following instructions.
Day and night difference.
Uh-huh.
Trust is built on that respect and shared goal.
And technology can help bridge the distance, too. Even simple tech.
Yeah, the source is practical about this. You don't need super expensive, complex systems. Simple works.
Like what?
WhatsApp is great. Quick updates, sending photos of crop progress, flagging issues instantly. Mobile money or bank transfers make payments easy without you needing to be there with cash.
Sure, convenient.
It does mention drones or CCTV as possibilities, if it makes sense for your scale and budget, but it quickly adds that consistent communication is way more important than fancy gadgets.
So the human connection and the regular flow of information matter most. Okay, foundation laid. Vision, models, trusted partners, communication. How do you actually grow this thing? What's the strategy?
The advice here is very clear. Start small. Grow steady.
Don't bite off more than you can chew remotely.
Exactly. The source explicitly warns against trying to farm your entire plot right away. It's just too much to manage effectively from a distance when you're starting out.
Why is that such a risk?
Because you need time. Time to test your systems, refine how you work with your local team, build that trust we talked about, and honestly, just learn the specific realities of your land and local conditions.
Makes sense. Learn on a manageable scale first.
Start with just 1 or 2 acres. Get that running smoothly. Work out the communication kinks, understand the workflow.
And the same goes for what you're growing. Keep it simple initially.
Yes. 1 crop to start. Or maybe 1 simple livestock venture, like chickens. Don't try juggling 5 different things remotely from day 1. Master 1, then add.
And tracking is key for learning, right? That remote feedback loop.
Crucial.
Yeah.
You absolutely have to track your expenses, your labor costs, what you're getting in terms of yield. All that data, reported back by your team, is how you learn what's working and what's not.
So you can make informed tweaks before scaling up.
Precisely. The source calls these early successes small wins. They build confidence, prove the model works, and create momentum to take bigger steps later.
And the source also encourages thinking beyond just the main crop, diversification.
Yeah, it pushes you to see the land as potentially more than just fields. Could it be a hub for other related activities, adding value?
What kind of diversification ideas does it mention that could work well with remote management?
Things that can often be managed locally with good oversight, like a small poultry unit, chickens, maybe ducks. A fish pond is another one. It even suggests maybe setting up a small packaging center, not just for your own stuff, but maybe you could offer that service to other farmers nearby. Turns your land into a bit of a community resource.
Interesting. Adds another income stream.
Or, if the location's right, scenic, accessible, maybe you think about agritourism. Simple eco-lodging, perhaps, that a local manager could run.
So layering the potential of the land. Which really brings us back to the core philosophy, the mindset needed. The source sums this up, right?
It does, and it's my advice section. It ties it all together. Being an absentee farmer doesn't mean being careless. It means being structured.
Smart farming through systems.
Systems, reliable processes, and those crucial partnerships on the ground. It's about being strategic, not necessarily physically present every hour.
And that quote really sticks.
Land is silent wealth, but only those who pay attention, even from afar, will hear it speak back in harvests and returns.
Silent wealth. That's powerful. It's there, waiting.
But it needs that intentional approach, especially remotely. The planning, the trust, the consistent attention, even if it's through phone calls and reports, that's how you unlock it.
So let's wrap this up. Thinking about everything in this source. The vision, the smart choices, the trust building, starting small, diversifying. And what's the big takeaway for someone listening, maybe someone with land they're not sure how to manage remotely?
I think the main message is, yes, it's absolutely possible. And it can be really rewarding, not just financially, but in other ways too. But it requires that upfront strategic thinking. That vision is critical.
It's not passive investing, even if you're remote.
No, it's active management, just managed differently. It demands practical choices suited to being absent, and really investing time and effort in building solid, trusting relationships with your local team or partners.
It sounds like building a well-run, distributed business almost.
In a way, yes. And the source touches on something deeper too, in the seeds of tomorrow part. It frames this whole endeavor, managing land from afar, as, well, almost an act of courage.
Courage. How so?
Because it has the potential not just to generate income for you, but to genuinely contribute to the local community, create opportunities, improve livelihoods where the land actually is.
So it's about more than just your own return.
Potentially, yes. It reinforces that the real driver isn't just showing up daily, but the quality of the plan, the preparation, the systems you put in place. Taking that first step, sowing that seed of a plan despite the distance, that's the start.
Building something that yields returns even when you're not physically there.
A legacy, maybe, connected to that silent wealth.
So final thought for you, the listener. If that idea of silent wealth resonates, what's one small, steady step you could take based on this kind of smart planning anchored in trust? What could you do this week to start listening? To figure out what your own acres or potential acres might be ready to speak back in harvests and returns, even if you manage them from afar, how could you start cultivating that?